Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video and the final fight of Heroes Jubilee, Boss Battle 2. This is the single target fight versus Diablo, and Diablo doesn't really do much. He nerfs greens, whereas the first fight nerfed blues, so now you can flip between what kind of alternate teams you can attempt to run. He also has defense, crit, and pierce resistance, which is different than what they were doing on the other side. Otherwise, he's pretty straightforward. The starting hand, though, is kind of rough. So it's a 1-1-2 and then a triple orb steal. So you either have Raphael to convert this and make it all oranges, or you don't have Raphael and you bring a different triple orb stealer, or you just don't fucking worry about it. But just like Boss Battle 1, if you do not have Raphael, it's gonna suck. And even if you do have Raphael, and you don't have any dupes and the Battle Cluster rocks invested, your score is going to look somewhat close to mine. Which is still not great, considering that I'm rank 8, and this is my highest score so far. And people are getting double my score, if not more. So this is with full dupes, full rocks invested. This is with a lot of dupes, but no rocks invested into Raphael. And that is the primary difference, because Raphael goes from giving you 60% weakness strike to 120% weakness strike every single time you ult. So just please take this with a grain of salt. My alt teams are going to be much, much lower than this even. And even I'm fairly low on this poll right now. So just try your best. Try your best, that's all you can really ask for. It's going to suck regardless, though. Also, another long video warning, because it's another 8-turn fight and I got 5 teams to show you. So just timestamps down below. Alright, so since this is now a single target fight, I want to try and get Fern to do as much damage as possible with Raphael. Still going to do good damage, but since Fern already has a magic buff, we're not going to bring Violet. We're going to bring actually Light Blanc for another light unit, and the weakness strike and synergy down is something that this team can use, since the permanent buffs from Raphael will work alongside the temporary weakness strike buff. And then still, Octagram Lumi's here. Permanent ult damage. The AoE doesn't help Fern at all, but it does help push us to getting Raphael stacks, which again is the whole point of this team. And turn 1 is set up for Raphael, so we're gonna steal 6 orbs, so we'll bring Raphael in and yoink those, so now we got a full hand of oranges. We can then either bring Fern in and get her EX ult, like right stat now, nice, quick, and in a hurry. We don't have to worry about any kind of attack debuffs in this fight, which is great, so you could just freely swap people out as you need to. This hand, not really awesome, because we're not getting that many Raphael orbs, but it's better than nothing. So here, we might just get the Fern EX ult, because we'll do the extra ult gauge on every orb, and then we have Himmel that can change those 2 blues. So now we have the EX ult for Fern, and now she can literally just exist in the back for the next 6 turns of the fight and not do anything. Since all of the element buffs from Himmel will still affect her, the weakness strike stacks will still affect her, and now we just don't have to worry about much. So you can come out of here. Now we have 3 orbs for the hero, or not hero, but for Lumi, so we can swap out Blanc for Fern, and then we can bring Raphael in for Lumi after we use 2 more buffs off of her. So already we're almost done with using Lumi's buffs, which is great. And now we have the ults, so now we can get all the EX gauges and all the weakness strike stacks, and that's what you're gonna do for the next couple turns until you need to get the Frieren EX ult. I mean, I wouldn't attempt to prioritize a Blanc ult over getting another stack of Raphael, because Blanc not being on the force means that she won't hit nearly as hard. She's not getting any of the weakness strike stacks, so she's going to be infinitely less useful as far as a nuke is concerned. But here on turn 5, like, we could steal, or we could have just taken Raphael out again and gotten probably Frieren's EX ult. But, we went and stole anyways. We're still going to get the EX ult back. And this will mean that we need less orbs for Frieren when we do need her ult. But now we're done with the AoE stacks from Lumi, which is great. So, okay, another ult. We got another EX ult back as well. And sending Frieren's Orb Blast, which hit the natural synergy, which is great. So, Now we have to use the magic state. We don't have to use any more of the AoE buffs, though. We need to use one more stack of the alt buff. And there's the magic, and then another steal into 6. And now Frieren is good to just go away for now, until we need to bring her in on turn 7 to get the EX ult for her. And that's the fight. I don't think we really need to watch me stack with Raphael ults for the next couple of turns, so I'm going to go ahead and jump and save us some time. But here, there's another 6. We have the Frieren EX ult ready to go. The Fern ult is up front, and we're looking pretty good. However, didn't quite play it out like I wanted it to, because here I'm not able to send the Raphael ult. Raphael is up front, and it should have been in the back, or one of the other... well, I wanted both Frieren and Fern up front, so Raphael probably should have been in the back. That way we could have left Blanc up front with them, and then buffed them, and then brought Raphael in, so that's a bit of a misplay on my part. So we're missing out on a little bit of extra weakness strike there. Still got the buff from Raphael, no doubt, but missing a little bit of damage there. So we could have had a better run, but I don't feel like doing this again. But we have all 6 stacks. We've got all the different buffs. We have 240% weakness strike, which we could have had 270, I guess, technically. But 92 million, 109 million damage. And yeah, Fern is definitely going to be the strongest. I should have sent her over Frieren, but oh well. This run wasn't the greatest, but it is still my highest scoring run as of right now. And yeah, it's just simply send ults with Raph. Occasionally, get the Frieren and the Fern ult, and then call it a day. But it doesn't really take that much brain power to run this team, especially in this fight. Alright, for all of you unlucky Raphael missing people out there, we still have triple orb stealers. It's not going to be nearly as good, but, I've already mentioned in a couple videos that if you don't have Raphael, shit's going to suck. So here, we're going to bring Fern, Frieren, we're going to bring Stark now, Blanc is still here, and then we're going to bring Bride Shuna, already in slot 3, so we're just immediately going to steal and get an ult for somebody in the backline, whether it be Frieren or Blanc. And on this team, I actually do want an ult with Blanc to maximize our damage, so we're going to try and shoot for that. I mean, you could do the opposite, and you could do Shuna instead, but, she doesn't have a light unit under her. My Blanc is better gear, so this is what we're going to run with. Okay, so triple orb steal, into 6 Shuna. You could bring the hero, you could bring Summer Hinata if you want, you could bring... if you have Raphael, then great. You could run this team with Raphael, I guess, instead. If you also don't want to bring Blanc, you could bring Wielder of Magic Shinsha for the orange protection gauge and the orange damage buff, and that would work fine. Probably, maybe a little bit better. You'll lose some damage off of the ult, but you'll probably gain some damage off having just more stacks of Himmel and extra orb damage on that nuke turn with your big-time buffed-up Frieren and Fern orbs. So, I mean, you could go a number of ways with this alternate team because of missing Raphael. It becomes much more open to team build, but very much less damage. Big-time damage and score focused. So here, okay, cool. Stark is here to convert. We also have Blanc who's able to convert as well, but since we're not getting a lot of stacks with Himmel, we're not able to use him to convert those swapped orbs from, into blues that Blanc would give us. So that's why we brought Stark. Stark also has the permanent synergy resistance down, which will work alongside the debuff that Blanc is doing, because Stark is permanent and Blanc is temporary, so they work together. And it's just going to help us do more damage. And the fact that he's alt-swapping 2 light characters straight to oranges really means that it's going to be easy to get EX alts for pretty much all 3 of our light characters, because once one of them gets it, they can just go away, and we'll just get orbs for the other light character, Blanc. So that's why we kind of did it this way. And now, Frieren has the EX alt. Excellent, cool. Let's magic state now that it's 4 turns left to go. And then we could alt swap again, we could do a number of things. We're going to get the Blanc EX alt on these 2 orbs regardless. So we're pretty much set now, and not a lot needs to happen. So we can take Stark out, and then we can just do this. And, I mean, we're going to get an ult for Shuna as well. That's fine. I'm not going to ult with Shuna, but it's funny. And since she's EX Unbound, she's getting extra damage on this turn, and not anymore, because she's a burst character. So, there we go. Cool. Alright, now we have 3 orbs there, so let's do this, and then we can simply swap somebody out for Stark. So preferably Blanc, because it's more important to have Raphael or Frieren and Fern up front. So boom, there we go. Boom, stack with Himmel. All right, that changes those 3, and now we're pretty much set. We're gonna get an ult for Himmel, which is not the best thing in the world. Not Himmel, Stark. But also, now that we have access to another Himmel, we can actually bring Blanc up front, because we're done buffing with Stark. Like, we don't need to use them anymore. So there's that. And then we can bring Blanc up front, and these are all of our primary buffs ready to go. Like, Shuna's not doing anything, Stark's not doing anything more. So we can alt swap away, and then we have these 2 orbs that are just going to get changed to oranges. And now we don't have to worry about swapping people in and out or missing orbs for them because we didn't get good RNG. They're already up front. And we're already going to get a 6-hand because there's 3 alts and 3 orbs that are going to get changed. So there we go. This is the nuke turn. Let's have the orbs change. It's good that we got some Fern orbs and not a whole bunch of Blanc orbs. I would have preferred, a Frieren and 2 Ferns, but oh well. So double stack here because of the traits, pretty good. And then we'll just simply send the alts. So we've got 5 stacks, which is good. I mean, normally you only get 6, so it's not like we missed out on that much. 5.8 million, 26 million, 34 million. So yeah, not 200 million like we were doing with the meta team, but I mean, that's still respectable for missing probably the most important character on as far as your damage is concerned. So you know what? It's not bad. And again, you could swap out Blanc for Wielder of Magic Shinsha. You could bring in a different support character. I think he's got pierce resistance and crit resistance, but it's only 30%. It might go higher. He might stack it up. I don't actually know. But, you could do that. But there's an alt team for you. Okay, so unlike the first boss battle where greens were not nerfed, so I brought like Divine General, blue orbs on boss battle 2 are not nerfed. So you could bring a blue stacking team. It's going to take a little bit of time to set up again, just like the greens took, but you can. So one of our highest blue damage teams is the Ogre's Pride meta. Ogre's Pride Benny, stacking ult, and then on turn 8, giving you that 100% pierce power. Violet, Soe, Light Raphael to give us pierce, since normally we would get that from Momiji, and ult resistance down. And then we put Frieren on here, and, understand that you maybe don't have Fern or something. If you don't have Frieren or Fern, put another light character on here. But here, we're just going to use Frieren, because she was on the first banner. And then we've got, again, Blanc, who's going to be our sub-DPS character. So this actually works, it works fine. Again, it does take a little bit of time to set up, but you do have 3 light characters, Raphael, Blanc, and Frieren, or Fern, or somebody. Again, doesn't matter. But we don't have a triple orb stealer, so we're going to send these 3 greens, and then we're going to try and RNG into 6 oranges. So I know that's not going to be really fun for you, but you gotta do what you gotta do. This is the team you have to use, then it's the team you gotta use. I don't know if I would actually bring a triple orb stealer on this team. We need Raphael to activate the pierce so we can get the pierce power from Benimaru. Blanc being our alt swapping character to blue orbs and another light single target. Like, I don't know who I would swap on this team because all of them are fairly necessary. Soe and Violet are our primary orb changers while also giving us massive buffs. So I really don't see the point of bringing a triple orb stealer on this team specifically. Like, not even Raphael. Changing to oranges is not what we want on this team. So it would help us for turn 1, but I don't. We wouldn't benefit off that because Ogre's Pride Benimaru is not buffing oranges in any way. So let's alt swap. Boom, excellent. We're already that. As long as you can get good luck on turn 2 with those oranges, probably pretty fine. The only thing with this team is that you will not be able to use the full power buff of Soe, because he needs to have 300 points used prior to his skill being used. And we just cannot do that on this team if we want all 3 of our light units up front with maximum buffs. So we're going to have to use him at half strength. So he's still going to give the attack buff, but he's only going to give 50% synergy power, not 100. Because we can use Violet, and we can use Frieren. Okay, that's cool. That's 190 points right there, right? Somewhere around there. But it's not 300. And then we would have to use Soe, because then we have to bring in Raphael, and then we use the other buffs, because I want all 3 of our light units to be buffed. So just understand that Soe is not going to be at his full potential right here. But we use the magic state. We're looking good. This hand, I mean, not great, but we can convert it because of the power of orb changing, alt swapping. Raphael does not need an EX alt, so pretty safe to leave them in the back. Or you could just do this and then alt swap away and call it a day. The stacks from Benimaru for the first 7 turns are just affecting alt, so no one has to be up front for that. But on the final nuke turn, you have to use Benimaru when you've got everything set, because he's not going to give Pierce power to the back line. So you have to make sure that all 3 of your light units are up front. And here, it's actually a bit unfortunate, because we're not going to get the EX alt with Blanc. So maybe next time, if you were to run this team, you maybe just try and focus on that. Maybe put Blanc in the 3rd slot, so she would get most of those oranges on turn 2, because we're going to send the greens, and that would leave 3 orange orbs for whoever's in slot 3. And that would be a key to getting just a little bit more damage out of this fight. No one has an EX alt buff, so it's not like we're losing out on super huge amounts of damage, but we are missing an EX alt here for a normal alt. So now we buff with Violet, because our 2 strongest, quote-unquote, characters are up front, right? So there's that buff. And yeah, I'm trying to math it out. Like, I can't use the weakness strike and synergy down because I want Raphael to also have that synergy, or that weakness strike, because he's light. So now Soe comes in, we have to use his buff now. Like, there's just no way around it. We can't give it to Raphael unless we were to use it earlier in the fight, which, I mean, maybe we had points for. Maybe you can try and do that and put that buff on Raphael early and send him away. That might be a strategy you could do. But now that all 3 of our light characters are up front, now we use Benimaru, and now we'll send this 1.5, 4.9, 17 million. So, I mean, Blanc would have done another couple million damage on the EX alt, which would have been great. So we would have maybe hit close to 30 million. Maybe close to 30 million. Maybe a bit lower than that, 29. But yeah, it's an S rank. It's not a great score, but it is an alternate team that you can use that is not Himmel and Raphael and even Fern at that point. Alright, so now we're going to start like the alt teams that have nothing to do with Frieren and Fern and all that. The Commander meta does extra damage against light enemies, because normally you'd be nuking with Dark Diablo. But we do have 2 fairly good light single target characters on Commander in Hanada, and then actually New Year's Blessing Rimuru, who is also on Commander. And by bringing Rimuru, we can actually eliminate turn 1, shockingly. So Renard is another blue stacking protector, stacking weakness strike on us and alt resistance down on the enemy. Divine General Diablo, the green buff, going to be important for turn 1, and his synergy power buff. Glenda is going to give synergy to physical allies, but Diablo's going to give also the synergy power, which normally the Commander Diablo would give himself, but he's not here, obviously. Shizu here for the orb change. EX alt buff, physical buff for Commander, which we're running physical Commander units that are EX. Glenda, our double alt swap, and then the debuff that she has, gives us synergy on Commander, but also puts a 20% physical debuff on the enemy, and, anything helps. So, and we need an alt swapper here. You could also bring Blanc, like Light Blanc. You could easily swap Glenda out for Light Blanc. It'd be another magic character, but extra weakness strike. We're already getting synergy resistance down from Hinata, so it's like that wouldn't work well together. But you could also bring Stark. Stark has permanent synergy down, would alt swap 2 light alts, which we're bringing 2 light characters, so that's certainly an option for you. But this is going to work out fairly well. So turn 1, I said that we can eliminate turn 1 RNG, and because we have 3 greens, so green buff with Diablo, and then the 3 orbs for the 3rd slot, rainbow orbs. and they can combo off of the greens. So now we have a full 6 send, where technically, yeah, the greens are still nerfed, but now we're buffing the rainbows instead. So we can send a full 6-hand spread, and it's not the same as sending 6 oranges or 6 blues, but it does allow us to get 90 skill points here with Rimuru's trait, and be able to kind of work around this whole thing. And now we can just simply, we don't even have to alt swap right here. I mean, he's already more than good for turn 2 on his alt gauge, so we're free to use both of the orb changes for Hinata and Shizu. Shizu changes all oranges, which is great, and then Hinata changes up to 2 greens, which can be a run killer in most scenarios. But, and I didn't have to do it here, but just know that because we have Diablo and the multi-use skill, if you have enough skill points and you have like 4 green orbs, you could potentially use the green buff skill from Diablo and then just back-to-back use Hinata's orb changes, and that would handle the 4 green orbs. I didn't have to do it in this run, but if you run into that kind of stuff and you have the points to use the green buff again and 2 uses of Hinata, then you can get out of it. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you are running this team, that it can work for you. But here we do really need to focus on getting the EX ult for Hinata. Shizu getting an ult, I mean, is cool, but she's not type advantage, so her weakness strike stacks from Renard like doesn't matter. So you're gonna see me swap Shizu out before we stack with Renard. It does not matter on Shizu. She is not weak point. She's not on a force that gives extra damage against Dark, because even though she's fire, like she's here. And she will do like okay damage for an AoE if you can get her EX ult or just an ult for her, but it's not what you're really shooting for. You're shooting for the EX ults with Rimuru and Hinata. And Rimuru having a temporary weakness strike buff and a temporary attack buff that lasts for 2 turns means that you could use that skill on turn 7 and still have it active, and that's just less points you have to worry about. So thankfully, we're going to get the EX ult either here or the next turn once we alt swap away. So this is running, as you can see, fairly efficiently. You know, it has not required that much here. And then Shizu didn't have an orb to even bring in, so we were good there. And then we'll orb change with Hinata. That's 3 right there for her, and there's the EX ult. And so we have 1 more turn to stack. I believe I'm running the alt gauge charm on blues for this team because we just don't have a way to alt rush except for Rimuru. So, yeah. I wouldn't hold Rimuru's rainbow skill at any other point. If you have him skill fused by chance, you could use the rainbows twice in a row, or twice in the fight. Once on turn 1, and then once somewhere down the line, maybe to set up a Hinata EX ult if you're not getting a lot of orbs for her. My Rimuru is not skill fused, so we're not getting the extra damage. We don't get that second use of that skill. But if he is, then you could certainly use it again. But I don't have that capability, so I can't show it. But here, we are ready to nuke. We don't have that many points to use, so we can use an orb change on the nuke turn. So we're going to buff with Diablo. Everybody gets 100% synergy power. Glenda will put the debuff on. I mean, if you don't want to and you're short on points and you need to use the orb change to get 6, then you could forego the Glenda buff. But boom, boom. We've already used the Rimuru attack buff last turn, so that's good. So now we'll just use the orb change again. And now 1 more stack and we're ready to go. So Shizu, Hinata, Rimuru. No Rimuru orbs, unfortunately. 400k, okay. Hinata does 4 million, and Rimuru does 5.7 million. So again, it's not the greatest team in the world, but it is an option for you if you have access to it. And you know what? It's better than nothing. And if you wanted to swap out and put Fern on this team instead of maybe Diablo, then you could. You could. She wouldn't get the synergy rate from Glenda because she's not physical, but you could swap maybe somebody else out instead. And, you know, we'll see. Rimuru coming out, maybe, but that would also take away your turn 1. So you're going to have to play around with it. But that's an option for you to use in this fight. And the final team of the video is the Light 3.0 team. Very, very old. This was New Year's of 2023, but right before EX metas were a thing. So We're going to put Blanc on this team because we need an alt-swapping character for this, because it's awful to run. If you don't have Blanc, you could bring like free-to-play Rieger instead, or you know, I guess you could bring Tempest Elite Gopta or something, but Blanc's going to be the best for this team, and that would give us another strong single-target light character. But Light Shuna, stacking Pierce Power and Stun Strike, you are able to stun Diablo, so you actually benefit from those skills. Water Shuna, alt buff and orange orb changing, Light Milim for the attack buff and the light resistance down. If your Milim is skill fused, she changes all New Year's orbs to blue, which we have 3 characters that are on New Year's, so I mean that would work really well. Mine is not, though, so she's just going to convert her own orbs to blue, which is still fine. Blanc, we know why she's here. Light Raphael is skill fused, so he's going to give the stun strike to all New Year's characters, or something else. I think there's another force on there, I can't remember. But the primary nuking character, and then Light Lumi, green orb changing, the light buff, the ability to stun Diablo to remove his stun resistance, and it works. It's a very old team, so you're going to have really low damage numbers, but actually probably hit harder than you thought you would if you have to use this team. We have no way to deal with turn 1 though, so we do have to RNG our way into 6 oranges again, which is unfortunate. And here we don't get that, so I'll be right back. Okay, well, I checked, and this is the best run we're going to get. So, 5 oranges. Not 6, but 5. We can make do with that. We only have 1 character that needs an EX ult. We already know that we're not going to do super great, awesome damage, so missing 1 orb there, not a huge deal. At least we can get a stack of Raphael on the characters that matter, or a stack of Shuna on the characters that matter, and then we have enough points to orb change here. So, green's converted. We'll bring in Shuna so she can convert. Lumi is our least important character to get an ult with. Like, it's still important that we get it, but we don't have to focus it right now. Really looking for that Blanc to get an EX ult as quickly as possible, because she is going to hit just harder in general, because she has an EX ult, and Raphael and Lumi do not. This turn can work out, because we're going to have to alt swap, and then we'll bring Milim in for Blanc. So we're going to miss some orbs for her. So we're going to stack here. Lumi's going to miss a stack, but again, she's our least important nuking character here. And then another stack of Shuna. We'll bring Milim in for Blanc, change the green and the orange, and that leaves the 2 other oranges that Shuna can convert now. And then we'll just bring Lumi in for Milim, and we'll get some orbs for her and get her close to an alt. So, it works. It's a very old team, very old 5-star characters. Maybe you don't even have them. Maybe me doing old teams is not really a thing anymore because people are only pulling EX units now. So, is this team actually necessary? Question mark? Yeah, it's up to you. But there we take a gamble on the orb change. It kind of does, kind of doesn't work. But I think we're going to have to just simply swap Raphael out for Blanc, because that's his only orb, and he's very close to having an ult anyways, and we don't need an EX ult for him. So we could either swap for Shuna, or do that. So this works. We'll use the Lumi orb change. We have all 3 characters up front, so we might as well stack now. And then Lumi convert, and then we'll simply, again, take Raphael out for Milim. That way we continue to send 6 blue orbs, get the most amount of points back. And this is also 3 orbs of Blanc, which is getting us ever closer to her EX ult. And I think Lumi should be very close, or have it already. Okay, she does have it. So that works out very well. So here, we could just bring Shuna in, use both of the converts, and then bring Raphael in, who only needs like 1 orb anyway. So we're pretty much ready to go now at this point, after this ult swap. So boom, double stack. These 3 Blanc orbs should get her the EX ult. We have a Lumi ult. This 1 orb will get us the Raphael ult. And then we need to take Lumi and put her in the back, because I want Blanc and Raphael to get the most power out of it. I don't know if Lumi having the extra stun strike will actually out-damage Blanc's EX ult. I don't think it does, but if you believe it would, then you could just simply full buff with Lumi instead. Because someone's going to miss the attack buff from Milim, because she has to come in. So we're going to bring Shuna in for Lumi, because I decide that she's going to do the least amount of damage, and we'll send 6 blues, so that on the final nuke turn we can use the alt buff we could swap Shuna out for Milim, use the attack buff, and then bring Lumi in. And hopefully you have an orb for Lumi. So here, like I said, alt buff, boom. Milim comes in for Shuna, boom. Attack buff, we do have an orb for Milim, that's great. And then here we go. Double stack here for more Pierce power, more Stun Strike. We can overcome the defense, the Pierce defense that Diablo has. And then buff, 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 buff. And unfortunately, I don't have enough to orb change to get that final orb. So we're going to send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Lumi does 1 million. Okay. Blanc does 2.7 million. And Raphael does 2.2 million. So actually, Blanc still did more damage, which means that we were correct in not buffing up Lumi. So there we go. We did 6.9 million damage, which probably is more than you thought it would do. It's still not great, granted, but it is an X rank, and it is a light team with mostly all light units, so it is an option. But that's it for today's Boss Battle 2 video. If you have other team builds that you found that worked, please put it down in the comments. That way other people can see that and maybe be able to use that. But that's it from me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.